Welcome back, guys, to another educational episode with Cryptoverse DAO. I am your host, Dharma, BKLYN the God, whatever you want to call me. And today we are going to be going over smart contracts, what they are, how they work, why they're important, and a little bit about, the importance of what this technology means, We'll get into the meat of this, but before we do, please do remember, if you're catching this on YouTube, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Like the video if you did like it. If you didn't, give it a dislike. Why not? Let us know what you thought about all this stuff in the comments below. And do subscribe, because we drop a lot of educational content, a lot of trading analyses, a lot of DeFi news, headlines, breakdowns, all kinds of stuff. So to stay up to date and to make sure you don't miss a single episode, subscribe, hit that bell. Giving a like and dropping a comment does help with the algorithm, I'm told. I don't know exactly how this stuff works, but it should be good. So with all that said, let's launch right into it. So a smart contract, in essence, it's automated computer programs, right, that run, they execute commands, essentially. So the term has gained a lot of publicity since its conception, been at the center of a lot of attention, along with terms like artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, all of these buzzwords, right? And you might not know what they mean, but that's where we come in. We explain this kind of stuff to you, make sure that everything makes sense. Crypto contracts, automatic computer programs, like I said, that empower currency tradings, digital asset exchanges, other kinds of businesses, but it's not just limited to this. Right? It's effectively executing things on code and removing the human element from it completely. It's referred to sometimes as a trustless system, right? Because there are predefined sets of rules that govern the behavior of a system that runs on smart contracts. So, there's no room for error. Everything is pre-coded. Everything behaves the way it's supposed to behave. And that's really powerful. That's very, very powerful if you really think about it. You can, if you apply and extrapolate what this stuff could mean for the world, for, like it says here, businesses, asset exchanges, trading, but also you could think about logistics. You could think about customer resource management systems. You could think about sales systems. You could think about human resources, how this could do payroll and things like that could be completely automated. Even in the crypto world, think about pre-sales and things like that. If you are involved in like distribution, that can be automated instead of having to have human beings waste our precious time. Not even waste, but just use our precious time on things that machines can do. This is what smart contracts step in and kind of solve. So, it's a great way to make sure they allow machines to be machines so humans can be humans to a degree. But the main thing is, sets of rules summoned as a smart contract system. So this system guarantees that both parties are adhering to the principles and regulations that were set forth beforehand, because there's no way, we'll get into how it works specifically later, but in essence, a smart contract cannot run. It will not execute something that is against its own rules. It cannot do that. A human being can do that, but a smart contract cannot. So it ensures that both parties in the transaction or the exchange or whatever the behavior is that the smart contract is executing or governing, it ensures that both parties involved, or more than two, any parties involved, are adhering to the principles and regulations and guidelines, rules basically, that were set forth. Also, this is something, it automatically implements the contract obligations, right? Automatically. The obligations of the contract, what it sets out to do, it does immediately. As soon as you run the command, boom, it's all done. There's no need to wait for approval or this and that. I mean, you can code a requirement to wait for, you can put in an await command and wait for a specific piece of information to come in, but it's not a human being looking out for it, keeping an eye on it, and then as soon as you get the notification, you have to do it. It cuts out that middleman, it cuts out that step, and it executes as long as the rules are followed and it's in line with the guidelines. Boom, it's executed immediately. Now, you might have heard this term, code is law, talking about technology enforcing rules. With that, I mean, the question arises, do we even need lawyers? Do we need enforcement? Maybe we can live in a fully automated world. This is the kind of future that smart contracts and blockchain technology can create. You know, a world where code dictates what can and cannot be done. With the current development of smart contracts, this futuristic scenario may be closer than we think. Absolutely. There are so many real-world projects out there. The first one that pops into mind right now is Satoshi Island. What is it that they're doing over there? They're talking about blockchain ownership, trustless ownership, right, through smart contracts over physical land, over the actual planet. That's kind of crazy. So these things are literally happening as we speak. I'm very bullish on the future. It's going to be very interesting. This is going to see efficiency. Things are going to be much quicker. Things are going to be much fairer, more just, right? Because once again, like I said, you adhere to the principles and regulations set forth in the smart contract initially, right? Automatic execution of what it sets out to execute. So as long as you haven't coded anything nefarious into it, because you do see kind of shitcoin projects do this kind of thing where they'll code something shady where it transfers all the tokens to like the project founder or something, or you can't sell your tokens. That can be done, but again, that's the human being. That's the human element in creating the smart contract. It's not a fault of the system itself. If anything, the fact that it's done on smart contracts pushes transparency, because these contracts that projects are built on are usually publicized. You know, you generally can take a look at code for pretty much any project. You can go on the GitHub, any good project. You take a look at what Vitalik is doing now with this human DAO and all of that stuff. What do they have at the bottom of their website, their webpage? It's Twitter, it's GitHub, and it's Telegram. Literally, the GitHub is one of the things that's on there. So transparency, you know, even if a human being does try to code something nefarious, the smart contracts will show it. You know, the smart contracts will show that this is what's going to happen when you read through it. It's like a text file that you can read through. So yeah, whole lot of utility, whole lot of positives about this. So to get into what this thing actually is, what a smart contract is, because it might be a bit tough for you to kind of like visualize. I mean, it's all fine and dandy talking about like, oh, the world is going to be on blockchain, but what is this actual thing, right? So a smart contract is a piece of code. That's what it is. It's a piece of code, just text that's executed. A piece of code that can be executed automatically and in a deterministic way. The smart contract code is usually stored and then executed on the blockchain itself, right? To make it trustless and secure. This might be a little bit confusing. Trustless effectively means, it doesn't mean untrustworthy, right? Trustless means more trustworthy, because it doesn't rely on the assumption of trustworthiness within a human being, effectively, is what it is. So if a system is trustless, it doesn't rely on you having to rely on another person under the assumption that they can be trusted, if that makes sense. That's kind of like what a trustless system is. And secure as well. Bomb-proof code. That's always something that's very, very important. So smart contracts also have capabilities of receiving, storing, and sending funds, right? And even calling on other smart contracts. They follow if-then semantics, which makes them fairly easy to program. If-then semantics is something we will cover in a different episode. Smart contracts aim to remove the human factor from decision-making. The human factor is often proven to be the most error-prone and unreliable element of the standard traditional contracts, right? Let's take a look at this. So a vending machine, analogy to a smart contract, as long as the requirements are met, right, the transaction will go through. If you try to input the incorrect amount of something or the incorrect type of something, the system, like picture this as a text file, and it sets out rules. It says, do the transaction if, right? This is what that if then stuff means. We'll get into that in just a second. So it's like, if this requirement is met, right? If one coin, no, it's 3 coins. So if 3 coins, specifically these black and blue coins with this lady's head on them, right? Those specific ones, not a bigger coin, not a smaller one. Those 3 specific coins have to enter, right, this system. If that is met, then what you do is you dispense the Coke, right? As long as that is met, then it dispenses the Coke and the appropriate change. That's how it works. Now, if I know there's a lot of ifs, it's a bit tough. If the requirement that's set out initially is not met, what happens? The transaction doesn't go through. And it doesn't rely on a human being to come in and open this up and check if this is right and if this is not right and be like, oh, there's 1 coin coming in, but 2 more are coming tomorrow, so it's all good. Let me just pop this over here and put that over there and tell this person that. And it's just a whole mess, right? It's just a whole mess. This is clean. This is simple. This is fair. This is trustless. It doesn't depend on that element of human trust, right? If blah, 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 then do blah, blah, blah. It sets out the rules and it automatically executes them as soon as that if is met, and everything is Gucci. Now that's one smart contract. When they were talking earlier, when we were, looking at this Discord content over here, this is all homegrown content as well. Do check it out when you join our Discord. There's links below this video to our link tree. Discord should be on there, so just go through it. Feel free to go through it in your own time. It's a lot of great stuff on there. But literally, what if you picture this as a smart contract? They were talking about calling on other smart contracts. That if thing can be massively complex. It doesn't have to just be if 3 coins then Coca-Cola. It's not just that. It can be if 3 coins but 1 has a scratch. Then do this, call on another smart contract which checks if scratch is this diameter, like if the coin isn't split in half, then do that. So it can have like a vending machine that vends if multiple other vending machines also vend the okay, right? So it can be multiple if-thens, if that makes sense. If that makes sense, then subscribe. Yeah, effectively, that's basically what it is. That's a really brilliant way to think about it, the vending machine analogy. And here's a bit of a breakdown. So a typical vending machine is programmed in a way that allows certain transactions and state transitions based on the input. Fully deterministic as well, if then, right? For example, if you want to buy a Coke that costs $2 and you only have 1, no matter how many times you try, which really should just be twice, little joke for you there, you won't be able to get the drink because the conditions are not met. On the other hand, if you insert $3, then the machine will give you a can of Coke plus the appropriate change, right? Because that's a requirement that has been met, but there's another variable, so it kind of factors in what to do about that as well. That's another secondary if then, right? If 2, then great. If 3, then great, but also this. And it's run automatically. Even the change that is given is selected in a predefined, right, and programmed way based on which coins are available and which coins the machine wants to get rid of first. Like I said, multiple little vending machines vending their little vends, and all of them factor in to create one big beautiful system that runs on smart contracts. So it's really, really simple. That is essentially like how all this blockchain stuff works. It's pieces of code, simple if-thens, that work on other simple if-thens. So yeah, that's basically what it is. Very simple to wrap your head around. It's just, most of this information is just not out there. And the forms that it takes when it is out there are just so complicated, and it can be really daunting. So this is why I wanted to just plug this Discord education content again. Trading guides, Solidity guides for programming. We've got just crypto education guides, all kinds of stuff. And we're consistently adding to this. We're gonna have some boot camps coming soon. All kinds of exciting stuff with the Cryptoverse DAO. So let's continue. A smart contract can rely purely on the information available on the blockchain. For example, if you give me 10 tokens A, I'll give you 10 tokens B, assuming both tokens are available on the same blockchain. So again, requirements that need to be met. Or they can rely on external data sources, not things that are intrinsic to the blockchain that this thing is running on, right? For example, Ethereum or S&P 500 prices, right? External information that gets fed in. If this requirement is met, what is the requirement? Information comes from outside. Boom, makes sense, execute the code. The latter example makes smart contracts a little bit more difficult as they have to trust real-world data. That is something to be considered as well, for sure. It's always better to keep things on the blockchain, code things into the blockchain itself, because blockchains are generally pretty bomb-proof, right, if they're done correctly. The required trust can be minimized by using Oracle services, but even Oracle services have to be trusted. This is the problem. A smart contract removes the necessity for this problem, thereby, removing the problem as well. There are already a few projects that, by using certain incentives, make oracles more likely to provide correct data. Chainlink is a project that clearly stands out in this category. Again, yeah, definitely check out Chainlink. Is a pretty cool project. I would say definitely check them out. Let's take a look at Ethereum. Yeah, Ethereum is a really, really great example. Blockchain that supports smart contracts, immutable smart contracts too. That means once deployed effectively means, yeah, you deploy it to the blockchain effectively. So you write up the smart contract, you create it, and then you can deploy it on a test net first to make sure everything is working as it should be. And then once you've double-checked, triple-checked, quadruple-checked that everything works and everything is, functional and makes sense, then boom, you put it on the live blockchain, you put it on the mainnet, and that's called deployment. That's when you deploy it. Once it's deployed, generally, an immutable smart contract cannot be modified. That's why it's so important to make sure you bomb-proof your code. We'll go over all of that in the Solidity programming guide, which we have. We'll be doing educational content, educational episodes on that specifically as well. Solidity, just a quick breakdown, it's the programming language that was developed by the Ethereum team for smart contract coding effectively, right? Yeah, smart contracts can be written in a programming language called Solidity, specifically created for that purpose. In Ethereum, all the smart contracts that are deployed are immutable. Like I said, no modifications once it's been deployed to a mainnet, which creates certain risks. That is true, but we'll get into all that stuff later. Once again, like I said, in this Discord education content, we do have a Solidity guide as well. And I'm pretty sure we've done a few episodes on Solidity prior to this. So, go through it in your own time. And we'll continue to upload these for you on the YouTube as well. So, although Ethereum is currently the most popular general-purpose smart contract platform, it's not the only one, right? And has a few competitors. Definitely the biggest, but not the only one. You might have heard of Cardano, Charles Hoskinson's one, Tezos, EOS, Tron, but not all of them share the same characteristics, right? With the immutability, there's specific things. There are things that are, aspects to each of these kind of platforms that are specific to each of these platforms. I would say do some research on your own, a little bit of homework for you all. Take a look at each of these ecosystems or platforms, and kind of figure out what the differences are. Educate yourself a little bit. It might be nice to do some outside research too. Oh yeah, this is where the actual term came from. So it was a well-known cryptographer called Nick Szabo. In the early 1990s, he was the one that coined this term. He had Bitcoined this term. I'm on fire with the jokes today. Not really. But yeah, that's where the name came from. Not the most self-explanatory, but it's stuck. I would say it is pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. It's a contract, right? What does a contract mean? If this condition is met, then we do this. It sets out the rules and regulations. So it does make sense, principles and regulations of the smart contract. And the smart part of it I think speaks to the automatic implementation or execution of contract obligations. Automatic execution. It's smart. It doesn't need a human. And it's a contract. It's an if-then sort of simple contract. And it's stackable and scalable, which is incredible because you can build all kinds of magic with this type of technology. So what is the opposite of a smart contract? What's like a dumb contract or a traditional contract? Well, to understand the benefits of the smart ones, you gotta compare the smart ones to the traditional ones, the degen contracts. So let's take a hypothetical, right? Let's say we want to write the following contract. Alice sends X number of tokens A, and Bob sends the same number of tokens B. The tokens will be swapped, and Alice will receive Bob's tokens. Bob will receive Alice's tokens. In a non-smart contract world, one way of achieving that without Alice having to trust Bob, and Bob having to trust Alice, never trust a Bob, if your name is Bob, sorry. So without that element of trust, right, you could do an escrow service. That's one thing. A third party that kind of holds the money until the obligations are met and then conducts the transaction for you. But then what if the third party makes away with your money too? That's not fully trustworthy, right? The third party would, but let's work through the example. The third party would collect tokens A from Alice, wait for the same number of tokens B from Bob. So once those requirements are met, everything's fair, then the escrow would send Alice and Bob their respective swap tokens. I'm sure you understand the problems that this has. Trusting intermediaries, and it's not effective. It's not effective and it's not safe. There's no guarantee that the third party will not fumble the bag for you or run away with the bag for you. Mess up the transaction with the tokens after receiving the funds from both parties. We have to rely on the reputation of the intermediary and potentially whatever insurance that they give you. Escrows do that sometimes. This approach is not deterministic, though. It's not if this is met, then automatically, immediately execute this. And if something goes wrong, it could have different outputs depending on multiple factors, including the jurisdiction, the regulation in the space in which this happened. How do you settle this conflict? There's no regulation. Regulation is not required here because the issues cannot, it won't arise. There's no intermediaries for it. This is why education is so important, man, because if every single person on the planet understood how a smart contract works, and the transparency that is required with all these projects and stuff, it would be much more difficult for people to do these rug pulls and these JEETs and these low shitcoins. Much more difficult. That's kind of the goal with the Cryptoverse DAO. That's a part of our mission. We want to give you guys the education, give you guys the knowledge to protect you and also to push Bitcoin and blockchain mass adoption. Because if you think about this technology, it's so scalable. The use cases are literally endless. It's literally endless, man. You could have a whole computer built just on smart contracts. You could have, well, maybe not. Maybe I'm not, qualified enough to say whether or not that can be done. Theoretically, though, it's doable. It's literally doable. You could put smart contracts into your household management, right? What your meal planning, your gym schedule, your workout preps and stuff, your workout routines. You can smart contract them. Whatever it is that you do in life, you literally could code it onto a blockchain. Most things, as long as it's a if-then, because that's the basis. It's a transaction. That's the basis upon which enormous systems can be built. But I apologize for that little tangent. Let's get back to Alice and Bob. The approach is not deterministic with an intermediary, right? So regulation, all of that stuff is an issue. On the other hand, the smart contract would work in a fully automated and deterministic way. Both parties receive the funds when they meet the initial criteria of depositing the coins. Smart contracts can also hold funds within themselves, which is just not possible to achieve in the traditional world. A smart contract can contain tokens and dispense the tokens, or coins or currency or whatever it is, when the requirements are met. That's something we'll cover in the Solidity Guide as well, possibly in more detail during the boot camp that we do. The boot camp will be a lot more in depth. We'll cover how to actually code a token, how to code an exchange, all kinds of interesting stuff. So yeah, trustless, and it's all internal too. So you don't need to worry about safety and trusting intermediaries. Speed. That's a big one, right? Depending on the intermediary, you might have to wait for months, days, weeks, whatever it is. They want to swap tokens on a Sunday, Chick-fil-A ain't open on Sunday, right? Is the intermediary even operating? What's happening? With smart contracts, you don't need to worry about any of this stuff, right? As soon as the criteria is met, boom, it's executed. Seconds, maybe microseconds, right? It's a computer. It's very, very fast. The cost as well is something to think about. Traditional contracts are expensive. The intermediary, that's a service. You need to pay for that service. They need to make a profit, right? Everybody's got to eat. There is also a huge risk of hidden costs for things like arbitration, enforcement, if anything goes kind of messy with the contract. Smart contracts don't need to eat. Smart contracts don't have that. They're not human. They're machines. They're perfect. You know, they don't need to worry about literally any of the faff. If, then, that's it. And it's immediate. Reusability as well. The same smart contract that's responsible for swapping these tokens between Alice and Bob can be used by anyone else who wants to swap tokens. In the traditional world, they would all have to sign separate contracts and pay their respective fees to the intermediary. Fraud. That's another issue. Another hidden cost of this. This time for the intermediary itself. The intermediary would have to make sure that both Alice and Bob's tokens are legitimate. Fraud is very common in traditional finance. Boy, how. Massively. And most companies have huge teams working purely on preventing fraud. With smart contracts, the tokens can be verified on the blockchain, and with digital signatures, it's clear immediately if Bob and Alice are both on the level for, receiving their tokens and spending their tokens. Let's talk about the use cases a little bit too. Like I touched on before, absolutely endless. These are just a handful of examples. Payments, DeFi, dApps, decentralized apps, decentralized finance, crowdfunding, supply chain, everything. It's not just that. It's not just limited to this. Smart contracts have a growing number of use cases, from payments, decentralized finance, everything that's covered up here. They're also the basic building blocks for decentralized applications. That's basically, again, it's just an application, right? But it's instead of running on traditional kind of code, it runs on smart contracts, generally built on, Solidity, Ethereum. These have kind of endless potential. Anything you can imagine. I mean, it's tough to describe an application, right? Because so ubiquitous, so many of them as well, like so diverse, right? That's the word, so diverse. So decentralized applications, equally diverse. These are some examples of smart contracts, things that have already been built in this space, right? Decentralized stablecoins, clever use of smart contracts, right? And certain incentives that are coded in. With those, you can create a stable coin that is pegged to the US dollar without having to store dollars in the real world. MakerDAO, another, so interesting companies. Check out, what was it? It was Chainlink. Check out Chainlink. Check out MakerDAO. Check out HumanDAO, that Project Vitalik is doing, and Satoshi Island as well. Automated liquidity provisioning, that's something too. So liquidity, basically just money, right? Liquidity pools, a pool of money to be used. Provisioning of these liquidity pools automatically in like a deterministic automatic way. A set of smart contracts can allow users to provide liquidity and swap tokens in a completely permissionless and decentralized fashion. Uniswap and Kyber Network are good examples of protocols such as these. Another use case is providing more transparency to the supply chains, where protocols like Origin Trail come into play. When it comes to crowdfunding, you can imagine a contract that unlocks funds as soon as certain goals are met and verified by the community. And it doesn't stop here. Let's take a look at some more futuristic examples. Ride sharing, apartment rentals, much more, everything, booking your appointments, going to the dentist, going to the theater, ticket systems, right? Ticketmaster, imagine a blockchain Ticketmaster. It's going to happen soon. What about charity, crowdfunding? We've covered this in news episodes as well. We've seen examples. It's not just a case of imagining these things, guys. These things are literally happening as we speak. It's kind of crazy. A fund could determine that a certain region was struck by a hurricane. If, then redirect funds to that part of the world. Imagine that. It sounds kind of impossible right now, but I mean, the Earth was literally mud and water and rocks, and now we have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and rocket ships. Like it's, it's doable. It's doable. We gotta have big vision. All right, so what are the actual risks, right? One of them is software bugs. That's a massive one. A good example was the DAO hack, caused Ethereum to hard fork, millions of dollars worth of ether lost. Caused a hard fork, created a lot of disagreements in the community. Since that hack, the Ethereum community came up with a lot of extra security measures, right? These days, pretty much all popular smart contracts have gone through a security audit, often by multiple teams. This is supremely important, and this is something that we've covered and will continue to cover in the educational videos. Bomb-proof your code. Double check it, triple check it again, put it on a test net, check it like 12 more times, then get someone else to check it, get someone else to check that other guy, and then, once everything is absolutely bomb-proof, that's the only time you should deploy your smart contract. Besides the multiple team security audits, there's a trend for using formal verification methods to prove that certain contracts will always behave in the way that they are supposed to. Another problem, protocol changes. Even if a smart contract is fully bomb-proof and has been audited, we still can't guarantee that a change on the platform level will not cause problems. Imagine a situation where an upgrade to the Ethereum itself, the Ethereum network itself, can cause certain smart contracts to start behaving differently, right? Because they're if-then systems that run on variables. When the variables change, not variables, like requirements. When the requirements change, you might not function the way that you expect to. If you're standing on hard ground and then all of a sudden the ground is pulled from beneath you and you're standing in quicksand, are you going to be able to walk exactly the same way? Maybe not. Maybe you need to, implement a new smart contract to accommodate for the new situation that you find yourself in. So, that's something to be taken into consideration as well. Real world issues can arise that cannot easily be communicated by Oracle services. It's true that Oracle services can provide a reliable way of getting information from the real world, the outside world, into the blockchain itself. We talked about, Ethereum or S&P 500 prices. Let's go through this little example. So imagine you rent an apartment or a car and you accidentally damage it, right? How would a smart contract without any human intervention know about it? There are multiple examples like that where it is difficult to imagine how something unexpected that happens in the real world can be visible to smart contracts. To be honest, I feel like the way this is something that could be solved as well with new technology. If we can find a way to have hardware behave in a certain way because a smart contract told it to, or have a smart contract change based on inputs from hardware, that's something that, because you could have a sensor that tells you your car is damaged and then the smart contract operates based on that information. But then again, hardware comes with a whole bunch of bugs too. You could have a faulty sensor, someone bumps your car and it's not fully damaged. A lot of things to think about, but I think the thought processes themselves are really important. We could have the next Vitalik Buterin, we could have the next Satoshi Nakamoto watching this video right now. If that's you, think about this stuff, man. Think about this stuff and see. You might come up with like an incredible idea that solves all of these problems. That's the kind of thing that we want to facilitate in this world. With the Cryptoverse DAO, with all this education, we want to make that kind of stuff possible. Besides all the above, there are also other risks involved in things like regulation or tax, but we do strongly believe that all of these can and will eventually be solved. Smart contracts may not be able to do everything they promise theoretically, at least currently. Here's the primary reasons. So, smart contracts are not actually smart. There's no intelligence, there's no machine learning or machine intelligence. They're just called smart because there's no humans. It's an if-then, right? Automation and condition enforcement. That's what gives it that word. That stuff is coded in, so there's no need for third-party intervention, so it's smart enough to function on its own, right? But in reality, they can't really judge circumstance. They can't really play by the code as law principle based on circumstance. Well, no. They play by the code as law principle. They can't judge by circumstance and kind of be discerning and They're not human, basically. They're not AI, right? It's code is law. That's basically what it is. It's just code is law, no humans involved, so smart. Can be useful, but also can be harmful, right? So conditions cannot be changed or tampered with in the contract, even if both the parties mutually agree to a condition outside the agreement. Contract's immutable. Come to an agreement outside, sorry, nothing doing, can't be done. Smart contracts just execute mutually agreed upon conditions and follow the code in any state. So the immutability can be a limiting factor, but again, it's a pro and a con that kind of balance the other out, if that makes sense, because, you have this question of outside resolution, internal, changes to the thing. But if you set out, it kind of forces people to really think about what it is they're trying to do, and account for every single possible variable before they deploy the smart contract, right? And realistically, I think what that enforces is more quality. It enforces more quality. You're not just going to have a haphazard smart contract being thrown around. You need to be completely sure that it's not going to fall apart in the future, and make sure that it's not going to... because if you have a really good plan, you're not going to need to change it, realistically. But, let's move on to the next one. Creating smart contracts is highly complicated and tedious. Another reason why practical applications for smart contracts are scarce, it's the sophisticated engineering involved in coding them. Smart contracts are supposed to be Turing complete, which is effectively what that means is it can simulate any Turing machine. For it to do that, for it to be able to stand on its own two legs and be like, hey, look at me, I'm Turing complete, it needs to be highly complicated, which makes it very difficult to analyze this technology. The catch is security. If a smart contract has bugs, the smart contract can be breached, and the smart contract is therefore invalid, pointless, shouldn't be using it. Analyzing a Turing-complete smart contract is a very difficult task, right? A Herculean task. Even ordinary contracts take years of expertise and constant builds and fixes and troubleshooting to meet user requirements. It's just a question of tediousness, complication, and how that factors into slowing, kind of, as a con. I feel like the education push, though, and the mass adoption push that we're seeing will likely mitigate this as well. They are tedious, they are sophisticated, they are difficult, but the technology is growing, it's fresh, it's new. That might resolve itself in the future. The more people learn Solidity, the more people learn the basics of a blockchain and the basics of how smart contracts work and how to create them themselves, people get used to the technology and people improve upon that technology, right? Yeah, literally. Think about the real world right now. Think about what the advent of the smartphone did. Enormous technology, but enormous potential with that technology, but the initial form of the smartphone, very basic, very, very basic. The cell phone, the first cell phone, very basic, but look what it's evolved into now, right? So, summary: fully automated, deterministic results, trustless, fast, precise, secure, cost efficient, and transparent. The cons: software bugs, protocol changes can be an issue, unclear regulation, and unclear taxation. These are all, things that can be kind of mitigated. Potentially not the software bugs themselves, because that's not really in human control, but if you bomb-proof your code and double-check it and you plan for eventualities, that can kind of be mitigated. All in all, though, I'd say the pros definitely outweigh the cons. And that brings us to the close of the, overview of smart contracts. We will go into this in a little bit more depth with the boot camp, right? This is what it is, getting ready for the boot camp right here. We will save this for the next episode. We will have a intro to the boot camp at some point this week or next week. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions based off of what we covered today, absolutely do drop a comment below. If you are watching this with us during the live stream, we'll pop into the live discussion soon, and we can cover all of this live. Do subscribe, check out the links in the description. Our Twitter is up, we have a link tree, everything is on there. be a part of it. Join the community, get to know us. We're all pretty cool people. We're very friendly. We don't bite unless you're a rug puller. No, I'm joking. Enjoy. I've been Brooklyn the God, Dharma, whatever you want to call me. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being a part of the Cryptoverse DAO. Ciao, ciao.